At the beginning, a mafia hitman named Rocco is on a mission to take out an Italian family of 4, the Manzoni family. After Rocco eliminates the family, he then takes the father's finger and sends it to the mafia boss named Don, who is imprisoned, but after analyzing the fingertip, they determined that Rocco killed the wrong person. So he is ordered to continue searching for the real Manzoni family.
Not him.
Meanwhile, under the FBI's Witness Protection Program, the original Manzoni family left the United States to live in Normandy, France. The family consisted of the father, Giovanni Manzoni, who was also a mafia boss, his wife Maggie, and their 2 children Belle and Warren, and their dog Malavita. Don, who tried to kill Giovanni for being the leader of a rival mafia years ago, is the reason they keep traveling and changing their names. Giovanni retaliated by reporting him to the police, who then put him in jail, and now the Don's thugs are always looking for him for revenge. In the middle of the night, the family arrived at their new home. Giovanni pretends to wander around the house after turning the electricity back on and starting a fire, but in reality, he pulls a dead body from the trunk of his car and buries it in the backyard. The next morning, everyone prepares to begin a new day in their new lives.
Love you too.
Maggie visits the town to see whether there is anything fascinating to do or see. The waitress at the cafe where she pauses confirms her worst fears. This is a little town with little to do. She travels to the grocery shop, where she overhears the clerk and several customers insulting Americans, believing Maggie won't understand them because they're speaking French. She becomes enraged and snatches some alcohol and a gas tank from the shelf, throwing them in the storage before lighting a match and throwing it in as well. She hastily pays for her groceries and exits the market before her trap explodes.
Keep the change.
She has lunch at a fast food restaurant where she attracts people's attention, making too much noise while sipping her soda, and visits the church where she has the opportunity to befriend the priest. Warren rapidly gets in trouble with several bullies at his new school, who beat him up in the bathroom when he talks to them in a smarty-pants, arrogant manner. When lunchtime arrives, he meets with his sister and tells her everything he's learned about who is who in school, since he's planning to start a tiny mafia gang here.
Who's in love with the girl with the pink ribbon in her hair? Girl's over by the window.
After school, Belle starts walking back home, while a car with 4 teenage boys follows her around, inviting her to hang out with them. Belle initially declines, but after getting lost in town, she decides she might as well accept the ride. Instead of taking her to her residence, the boys take her to an area by the lake where teens normally congregate. Belle requests they take her home, but the leader invites her to stay and relax before lowering the strap of her dress and speaking innuendo. Not willing to let them get away with it, Belle returns to the car, grabs a tennis racket, and beats up the lad before instructing the others to be more respectful of women. Then she borrows the boy's car and drives it back home. Meanwhile, Giovanni walks to the property fence to have a cigarette, which is against the rules. He instantly detects FBI officers hiding nearby, keeping an eye on him, and returns inside to check the glass garden shed. He finds a typewriter throwing out a bunch of junk, and because it still works, he decides it's finally time for him to write his memoir recounting how he took over the family business, founded by his grandpa decades ago. When he stops for a break, he meets his neighbor in their shared backyard and tells him he's a writer when asked what he does for a living. Later in the evening, when the family is eating dinner, Robert Stansfield, the FBI agent in charge of their investigation, pays them a visit. After approving Giovanni's writer story, he asks about a shop owner who went missing recently, and Giovanni says he doesn't know anything about it, when in fact he killed him because he sold him seafood that he claimed was fresh but was actually frozen, the body he had in the trunk. Before departing, Stansfield urges him not to get into any trouble and informs him that the FBI officers who will be protecting him from the house across the street are Sicko and Mimo.
Maggie for me. Yeah, you bet.
Then Giovanni joins his wife in bed and has a nightmare about a barbecue party he held many years ago, which was the occasion on which Lucchese chose to strike.
The whole truth to be told just once, to say, well, in this chapter, I'll do the opposite in number 10, number 9, number 8, number 2.
Hey, Giovanni.
The next day, when Giovanni becomes overly preoccupied with his writing, Maggie demands to know what he's writing about and panics when she learns it's a memoir, which may land them in serious danger. She picks up a tray of food she's prepared, especially for Sicko and Mimo, and heads out the door to deliver it to them, asking Giovanni to check the tap water, since it's brown and the plumber she's called isn't coming. Warren is making contacts with the proper people at school, utilizing information and stolen products to entice them to work for him. In contrast, Belle has to beat up a girl in the washroom for stealing her pencil case. She also notices a really attractive man in the cafeteria, and Warren introduces him as Henri, a college student serving as a substitute teacher for math class. All the girls at school want him, so Belle will face stiff competition if she pursues him. But she has a plan. She approaches Henri after class and requests private math lessons, which he agrees to. Meanwhile, Warren meets his bullies outside of school and begins to beat them all up using the contacts he's made. Back at home, the plumber is nearly 40 minutes late, which irritates Giovanni. When the man tries to change all of the pipes in his house unnecessarily, Giovanni beats him up with the tools he finds in the basement and puts the body in the plumber's own van to take him to the hospital, where the doctor is baffled as to how the man's body could have so many fractured bones from simply falling down the steps.
What? I don't understand it.
While Rocco hunts down the seafood store owner's family and murders them all for not knowing anything about Giovanni, who continues to write his biography, describing how he used to take good care of his old neighborhood in Brooklyn. Maggie chastises him in the evening for what he did to the plumber, and he responds by reminding her of the explosion she caused at the convenience store. When the weekend arrives, the family hosts a barbecue party and invites all the neighbors, an idea they don't like, but Stansfield insisted so they could better blend into the community. Maggie inquires about the Henri person she's invited and warns Belle to be cautious, but Belle assures her that she won't be having time pass in classroom. She'll choose the appropriate time and place with the love of her life. Warren then arrives with several bottles of Coke and instructs his mother to stop making French dishes and instead prepare American cuisine, because that is what the neighbors demand. The only one missing is Giovanni, who Belle discovers in the garden shed. Writing his life down has been like looking in the mirror for hours, and he's realized he regrets not being a better father to his children and putting them in these difficult situations. Belle, on the other hand, disagrees, claiming he is the best father in the world. Giovanni arrives at the party in a better mood, only to become upset when the neighbors begin teaching him how to start a grill fire. He fantasizes about all the ways he can torture them for being impolite, but happily, he is interrupted by the just-arrived Stansfield. The two men talk privately, and Stansfield tells him that people in the White House are concerned about the book he's writing because it may get many people in trouble, but Giovanni assures him he's writing it for himself and has no plans to publish it. He also tells that Giovanni snitching on Lucchese has been the FBI's best advertisement ever, and currently, more and more members of Giovanni's old mafia organization are turning over information in exchange for protection to live a safer life. Belle is sad that Henri did not come up. The next day, Giovanni meets with the mayor to resolve the brown water issue. The man has no solution, and Giovanni imagines beating him up for it before leaving the office without causing any trouble. He goes to the water company, where he confirms that the water has already arrived unclean in their reserves, and one of the workers there provides him with a hint as to what's causing it, a nearby fertilizer industry. He goes to that factory, and when the manager is unhelpful and disrespectful, Giovanni ties him to the back of his car and pulls him down the road until he confesses. The man shows him how to find the turbine he needs to deactivate in order to access clean water, and now that he has the information he requires, Giovanni abandons him in the middle of the road with his bike, promising to cut his balls if he ever tells anybody what happened. When he returns home, he discovers Stansfield reading his manuscript, which he enjoys, but chastises Giovanni for writing it in the first place. Meanwhile, Maggie continues to frequent the church, and the priest persuades her to make a confession with him, promising her that all she says is private. The things she says, however, are so distressing that they plague the priest for a week, and he prevents her from ever entering his church again. Warren has forgotten to write something for the school paper as promised, so with only 5 minutes to send in something, he ends up repeating Lucchese's quote from when he first met him as a youngster. The newspaper is passed from hand to hand all throughout town, read on the plane, and wrapped around things, which is how it gets to Lucchese's cell.
It's good enough for you, it's good enough for me.
For me.
The sound of wheels, day inside and out.
I have a package for you, boss.
Where is he exactly?
The old guy recognizes the quote right away and dispatches his soldiers to Normandy to find Giovanni once and for all. Belle pays a visit to Henry's class, and they end up making love against the door. In the evening, Giovanni receives a call from one of the neighbors who attended the barbecue, inviting him to a film event the community holds once a month. They watch a movie and then discuss it, and since the next time they'll be watching an American classic, they want Giovanni there to guide the debate with his expertise as a writer. He accepts, and because the FBI monitors all of his calls, Stansfield arrives minutes later to inform him what a terrible idea it is. Giovanni disagrees. He feels this is a perfect way to show how well they fit in and convinces Stansfield to accompany him to the event. Warren's violent and criminal acts are discovered by the school board the next day, so he runs back to the house to obtain some money and phony documents so that he can go to Paris and establish his own illicit business and mafia family, as his father did when he was 13. Before departing, he bids farewell to his sister, who is upset since she has fallen in love with Henri. But for him, she is simply a fling, and now that he has graduated, he will also reside in Paris. Giovanni leaves a dummy on his seat to fool the FBI, and he sneaks out of the house to plant a bomb on the turbine that causes the water to turn brown. Following that, he meets with Stansfield, and the two of them proceed to the film event, where they learn they'll be viewing Goodfellas. Stansfield believes the situation has worsened, but Giovanni points out that departing before the movie begins is even more suspicious. After the film, Giovanni is invited to tell the audience how true to life New York is, and Giovanni can't stop himself and begins narrating anecdotes about his life there as a mob boss, which the crowd believes are imaginary. Stansfield is still not pleased, and believing Giovanni is out of control, he calls Di Sicco and Mimo to order them to gather the family and begin Plan B. Meanwhile, Warren is waiting for the train to Paris, while Belle is on the roof of a house, contacting Henri and threatening to kill herself if he does not take her back. At this point, both siblings notice a bunch of mafia hitmen arriving in town and decide to return to the house to warn their parents, especially after Warren tries to call them and receives no response.
Hello? Hello?
The hitmen assassinate everyone in the police station and use their records to track down Giovanni's address. They also murder firefighters and slash the tires off fire trucks. While Maggie joins Di Sicco and Mimo to inquire about her children's whereabouts, an explosion erupts in the city, the bomb Giovanni had intended to detonate the film event as an alibi. Stansfield drives him back to his house, warning him not to come out until he talks to the cops. Maggie wishes to return home as well, but as soon as she steps outside, she notices the mystery men in black and returns inside with Dee Sicko and Memo, where she attempts to call the house, but her husband does not answer the phone. The hitmen arrive at the house and cause it to explode, killing any neighbors who come out to check what's up. Giovanni fortunately survives, hiding in the backyard after hearing Malavita bark as an alert. Maggie wants to see him, but as Dee Sicko and Memo approach the door, they are assassinated by a hitman who threatens to take advantage of Maggie and kill her. Giovanni arrives at this moment and leaps on the hitman, while Maggie searches for a dagger to stab their assailant. While the hitmen are preoccupied exploring the house's rubble and debating whether or not to murder the dog, Warren and Bell come and steal several of the hitmen's weapons from the trunks of their cars. A gunfight erupts and Warren and Bell manage to kill all of the hitmen but Rocco. With Warren knocked out by recoil, Bell begins racing away, believing Rocco's lack of bullets will work in her favor. The old man is unexpectedly resilient and pursues her until Stansfield appears and runs him over with his car. The hitmen may be dead, but the family's identity has been revealed. Leaving behind all the destruction, they again relocate to a new town under new names. Giovanni is glad he got to tell his story to an audience, even if they all thought it was a hoax, and says it all brought the family closer.